Marcus Williams wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the long metal corridor of Kepler-7 space station. His tool bag made soft clanking sounds with each step. The station felt different today. The air recyclers were working harder than usual, and he could hear strange humming sounds coming from the walls. His communication device beeped. Another repair request. Marcus sighed and looked at the screen. Dr. Helen Carter needed help with her lab's water systems. The message said it was urgent. Marcus had never met Dr. Carter, but he knew she worked in the research section. That part of the station was always having problems. Marcus took the elevator to level 5. The research section was quieter than the rest of the station. Most people avoided this area because of all the strange smells and sounds that came from the labs. Scientists did weird things here. Marcus had heard stories about alien plants and strange creatures, but he tried not to think about it too much. He found Lab 7C and pressed the door chime. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, Marcus saw equipment he had never seen before. Strange glass containers filled with green and purple liquids lined the walls. Plants that looked nothing like Earth plants grew under bright lights. The air smelled sweet and sour at the same time. "You must be the repairman," said a voice behind him. Marcus turned around and saw a woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore a white lab coat covered in colorful stains. Despite being older, she moved with energy and purpose. Her hands were dirty from working with plants, but her smile was warm. "I'm Dr. Helen Carter," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Marcus Williams," he replied, shaking her hand. "What seems to be the problem?" Dr. Carter led him to the back of the lab. Water was dripping from the ceiling onto expensive-looking equipment. The floor was wet and slippery. Several machines were covered with plastic sheets to protect them from the water. "It started 3 days ago," Dr. Carter explained. "Just a small drip at first, but now it's getting worse. The water is damaging my equipment, and some of my specimens need very specific conditions to survive." Marcus looked up at the ceiling. The water was coming from a pipe that ran above the lab, but as he studied the problem more closely, he realized this was not a simple fix. The pipe was old and corroded. Worse, the corrosion looked unusual. It was eating through the metal in strange patterns. "This is not normal wear," Marcus said, pointing to the damaged pipe. "Something has been eating away at this metal." "What kind of work do you do here?" Dr. Carter looked uncomfortable. "I study alien microorganisms. Some of them produce acids that help them break down materials for food. It's possible that some of my specimens have gotten into the air system." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean there are alien organisms loose in the station's air system?" "Not loose exactly," Dr. Carter said quickly. "But some of my work involves studying how these organisms interact with different materials. I test how they might affect metal and plastic and other things we use to build stations and ships." Marcus began to understand the real problem. This was not just a simple water leak. The entire pipe system in this section might be compromised. If alien organisms were eating away at the station's infrastructure, they could have a major disaster on their hands. He opened his tool bag and pulled out a scanner. The device could detect metal weakness and corrosion. As he moved it along the pipes, the scanner began beeping rapidly. The readings showed damage throughout the entire section. "Dr. Carter," Marcus said seriously, "this is much bigger than a simple leak. The damage extends through most of the pipe system in this area. We're looking at a complete replacement of the water and air systems for this entire section." Dr. Carter's face went pale. "How long would that take?" "Weeks, maybe months," Marcus replied. "And the cost would be enormous. The station management is not going to be happy about this." Dr. Carter sat down heavily in a chair. "They'll shut down my research. I'm so close to a breakthrough, Marcus. What I'm working on here could change everything for human space exploration. But if they shut me down now, years of work will be lost." Marcus looked around the lab again. Despite the strange smells and alien-looking plants, he could see that Dr. Carter was doing important work. Her equipment was sophisticated and expensive. Charts and graphs covered the walls, showing complex data that he did not understand but could tell was significant. "What exactly are you researching?" Marcus asked. Dr. Carter's eyes lit up. I'm studying organisms that can change the atmosphere of planets. These little creatures can take poisonous air and turn it into something humans can breathe. Imagine being able to make dead planets into places where people can live without suits or domed cities. Marcus was intrigued. He had grown up on a space station because his parents could not afford to live on a planet. Most planets that humans had found were either too hot, too cold, or had air that would kill a person in minutes. The idea of making new worlds livable was exciting. But there's more, Dr. Carter continued. These organisms don't just clean the air. They can actually build soil and create conditions for plants to grow. We could turn empty rocks into garden worlds. As Dr. Carter spoke, Marcus found himself fascinated by her work. She showed him samples of the organisms under a microscope. They looked like tiny flowers, beautiful and delicate. It was hard to believe that such small things could have such power. The problem, Dr. Carter said, is that I need more time to study how to control them safely. Right now, they're too unpredictable. Sometimes they work perfectly. Sometimes they create problems like what happened to your pipes. Marcus understood now why Dr. Carter was so worried about shutting down her research. This work could help millions of people find new homes on planets throughout the galaxy. But it was also dangerous if not properly controlled. Maybe I can help, Marcus said. I know the station systems better than anyone. If we work together, we might be able to find a way to fix the damage and continue your research safely. Dr. Carter looked at him with surprise and hope. You would do that? But you don't even know me. Marcus smiled. I may not be a scientist, but I understand the importance of your work. Besides, fixing things is what I do best. Over the next 3 days, Marcus spent more time in Dr. Carter's lab than anywhere else on the station. He had told his supervisor that the repair job was complicated and would take time. This was true, but Marcus had not mentioned that he was also learning about alien science. Every morning, Marcus arrived with his tools and started working on the damaged pipes. Dr. Carter would bring him coffee and explain her research while he worked. She was a good teacher, and Marcus found himself understanding things he never thought he could learn. These little organisms are amazing, Dr. Carter said, pointing to a container of what looked like glowing dust. They eat carbon dioxide and release oxygen just like plants on Earth, but they work much faster and can survive in conditions that would kill any Earth plant. Marcus paused in his pipe cutting to look at the container. How fast do they work? In the right conditions, they can change the atmosphere of a small room in just a few hours, Dr. Carter replied. On a planet, it would take longer, but we're talking about years instead of centuries. Marcus was impressed. He had read about terraforming in school, but teachers always said it would take thousands of years to make a planet livable. Dr. Carter was talking about doing it in decades. But there's a problem, Dr. Carter continued. These organisms are too good at their job. Sometimes they work too fast and create dangerous situations. They can produce too much oxygen and cause fires. Or they might eat materials we need, like the metals in our equipment. Marcus thought about the corroded pipes he was replacing. Is that what happened here? They got out of control? Dr. Carter nodded. I was testing how they react to different metals. I wanted to see if we could use them to help build structures on new planets. But some of them got into the air system and started eating the pipes. Marcus finished cutting a section of damaged pipe and set it aside. The metal was full of tiny holes, like something had been eating it from the inside. How do you control them? That's what I'm trying to figure out, Dr. Carter said. I think the answer is in their natural environment. On their home planet, something keeps them in balance. But I need more time to study this. Dr. Carter led Marcus to another part of her lab. Here she had built what looked like a small world inside a glass container. There was soil, tiny plants, and a miniature atmosphere system. It was beautiful, like looking at a living jewel. This is my test environment, Dr. Carter explained. I'm trying to recreate the conditions on the organism's home planet. If I can understand how nature controls them there, I can learn to control them here. Marcus watched the tiny world with fascination. Small clouds moved across the miniature sky. Tiny plants grew and changed as he watched. It was like seeing the creation of a world in fast motion. "How long have you been working on this?" Marcus asked. 23 years, Dr. Carter replied. "I started this research when I was younger than you are now. I've dedicated my entire career to understanding these organisms." Marcus could hear the passion in her voice, but also something else. Sadness, maybe, or worry. "What happens if the station management shuts down your research?" he asked. Dr. Carter was quiet for a long moment. "All of this work will be lost. The organisms will be destroyed and the data will be locked away in corporate files. No one else will be allowed to continue the research." "Why would they do that?" "Because it's expensive and because it's dangerous," Dr. Carter said. "The company that owns this station doesn't want to take risks. They want quick profits, not long-term research that might help humanity." Marcus continued working on the pipes while thinking about what Dr. Carter had said. He had always believed that companies supported important research. Learning that they might shut down work that could help millions of people was disturbing. "There's something else," Dr. Carter said quietly. "I'm getting old, Marcus. I'm 67 years old. Even if they don't shut down the research, I might not live long enough to finish it. This kind of work takes decades, and I've already spent most of my career on it." Marcus looked at Dr. Carter. Despite her age, she seemed full of energy when she talked about her work. Her eyes were bright and her hands were steady. But he understood what she meant. Time was not on her side. "You need someone younger to help. You," Marcus said. "Yes, but not just anyone," Dr. Carter replied. "I need someone who understands how things work, someone who can think about practical problems. Most scientists think only about theory, but this research needs someone who can build things and fix things when they break." Marcus realized that Dr. Carter was talking about him. "You want me to help you with your research?" Dr. Carter smiled. "You've been helping me for 3 days already, and you've learned more about these organisms than most of my graduate students learned in months. You have a natural talent for understanding how complex systems work." Marcus felt excited and scared at the same time. "But I'm not a scientist. I don't have the education." "Education can be learned," Dr. Carter said. "What can't be taught is the way you think about problems. You see the whole system, not just the parts. That's exactly what this research needs." Marcus thought about his life on the station. He enjoyed his work as a maintenance engineer, but it was not challenging anymore. He could fix most problems without even thinking about them. The idea of working on something that could change the future of human space exploration was exciting. "What would I need to do?" Marcus asked. "Learn everything you can about these organisms and how to control them," Dr. Carter said. "Help me build better containment systems so we can study them safely. And most importantly, help me figure out how to use them to terraform planets without creating disasters." Marcus looked around the lab again. The strange plants, the glowing containers, the miniature world in glass. It all seemed like magic. But he was beginning to understand that it was really advanced science, and science could be learned. "If I were your age," Dr. Carter said, "I would spend every day learning everything I could about this research. I would make it my life's work, because it's the most important work anyone could do." Marcus understood that Dr. Carter was offering him more than just a job. She was offering him a chance to help humanity spread across the galaxy. It was an opportunity that might never come again. "I want to help," Marcus said. "Teach me everything you know." Marcus had been working with Dr. Carter for 2 weeks when everything changed. He arrived at the lab that morning to find her staring at her computer screen with a worried expression. Her coffee sat cold and untouched on the desk. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, setting down his tool bag. Dr. Carter looked up at him with tired eyes. "I got a message from the station director. He wants to see me this afternoon. The subject line says, 'Research Review and Budget Concerns.'" Marcus felt his stomach drop. "That doesn't sound good." "It's not," Dr. Carter said. "They've been asking questions about the pipe damage and the repair costs. Someone told them that my research might be connected to the infrastructure problems." Marcus sat down in the chair next to her desk. Over the past 2 weeks, he had learned so much about the terraforming organisms that he sometimes forgot he was supposed to be just fixing pipes. Dr. Carter had taught him about atmospheric chemistry, biological systems, and planetary science. He had helped her improve the containment systems and even suggested new ways to test the organisms safely. "What will you tell them?" Marcus asked. "The truth," Dr. Carter replied, "that my research accidentally caused some damage, but that we've fixed the problem and learned how to prevent it in the future." "Will they believe you?" Dr. Carter was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. The company has been looking for reasons to cut research funding. This might give them the excuse they need." Marcus looked around the lab. In just 2 weeks it had become like a second home to him. He understood now how the organisms worked and why they were so important. The idea of all this work being destroyed made him angry. "There has to be something we can do," Marcus said. Dr. Carter smiled sadly. "You've done more than enough already, Marcus. You've helped me understand these organisms better than I ever thought possible. If they shut down the research, at least I'll know that someone else understands what we were trying to accomplish." But Marcus wasn't ready to give up. "What if we could prove that the research is worth the risk? What if we could show them something amazing?" "Like what?" Marcus walked over to the miniature world that Dr. Carter had built in the glass container. Over the past weeks, he had watched it grow and change. The tiny plants were thriving and the atmosphere was perfectly balanced. It was proof that the organisms could be controlled. "This," Marcus said, pointing to the container. "We could show them that we've solved the control problem. We could demonstrate that the organisms can be used safely." Dr. Carter shook her head. "This is just a small test environment. They'll want to see results on a larger scale." "Then let's give them larger scale results," Marcus said. "What if we could terraform part of the station? Just a small area, but big enough to prove that it works." Dr. Carter stared at him. "That would be incredibly dangerous, Marcus. If something went wrong, we could damage the entire station." "But what if nothing went wrong?" Marcus asked. "What if we planned it perfectly and used everything we've learned to make sure it was safe?" Dr. Carter was quiet for a long time, thinking. Marcus could see her weighing the risks against the potential benefits. Finally, she spoke. "There is one place we could try," she said slowly. "Storage Bay 12 has been empty for months. It has its own air system, and we could isolate it from the rest of the station. If something went wrong, we could contain the damage." Marcus felt excited. "How big is it?" "About the size of a large room. Big enough to create a real demonstration, but small enough that we could control every variable." "How long would it take?" Dr. Carter was already pulling up plans on her computer. "If we worked day and night, we could have results in 72 hours, but Marcus, if this goes wrong, we'll both be in serious trouble. They might not just shut down my research, they might arrest us for endangering the station." Marcus thought about this. He had a good job and a safe life on the station. If they got caught, he could lose everything. But he also thought about what Dr. Carter had taught him. These organisms could help humanity colonize hundreds of worlds. They could give people homes on planets that were now just empty rocks in space. "I'm willing to take the risk," Marcus said. "Are you?" Dr. Carter looked at him with surprise and admiration. "You're not the same person who came to fix my pipes 2 weeks ago." "You're right," Marcus said. 2 weeks ago, I was just trying to get through each day. Now I feel like I'm working towards something important. Something that could change everything." Dr. Carter smiled. "All right then. Let's terraform Storage Bay 12. They spent the rest of the morning planning their secret experiment. Dr. Carter would handle the biological aspects, preparing the organisms and designing the atmospheric changes. Marcus would handle the technical side, modifying the air systems and building containment protocols. "We'll need to work at night," Dr. Carter said, "when most people are asleep and the corridors are empty." "I can get us access to the storage bay," Marcus said. "Maintenance personnel have keys to everything." "And I can prepare the organisms without anyone noticing," Dr. Carter added. "I'll tell people I'm running routine tests." As they made their plans, Marcus felt nervous but excited. This was completely different from anything he had ever done. He was no longer just fixing broken things. He was helping to create something new. That afternoon, Dr. Carter went to her meeting with the station director. Marcus waited in the lab, trying to work on routine maintenance tasks but finding it hard to concentrate. Every few minutes he looked at the door, hoping to see Dr. Carter return with good news. When she finally came back, her face told him everything he needed to know. "They're shutting down the research," Dr. Carter said quietly. "I have 1 week to pack up my equipment and destroy all the organisms." Marcus felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. "They won't even listen to your explanations?" "They've already made up their minds," Dr. Carter said. "The repair costs were too high, and they're worried about safety. They want me gone before I cause more problems." Marcus was angry now. "They don't understand what you're doing here. They don't realize how important this research is." "No, they don't," Dr. Carter agreed. "But that doesn't matter now." Marcus looked at her determined expression and realized that she hadn't given up. "We're still going to do the experiment, aren't we?" Dr. Carter nodded. "We have 72 hours to prove them wrong. If we can show them what these organisms can really do, maybe they'll change their minds. And if we can't, then at least we'll know we tried," Dr. Carter said. "Sometimes that's all you can do." Marcus picked up his tool bag. "Then let's get started. We have a world to build." The first night of their secret experiment, Marcus and Dr. Carter worked until dawn. Storage Bay 12 was larger than Marcus had expected, about the size of a small apartment. The walls were metal and the floor was cold, but it had everything they needed for their test. Marcus spent hours modifying the air system. He installed sensors that would monitor oxygen levels, temperature, and humidity. He also built emergency shutdown controls that could stop the experiment instantly if something went wrong. Dr. Carter prepared the organisms in sealed containers. She had chosen the most stable ones, the types that had worked best in her small test environments. Still, Marcus could see that she was nervous. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as he finished installing the last sensor. "No," Dr. Carter said honestly. "But I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. All of this research dies with me." At 6 in the morning, they released the first batch of organisms into the storage bay. Marcus sealed the door and activated the monitoring systems. Now they could only wait and watch. The first few hours were boring. The organisms were too small to see without a microscope, and the changes they were making were tiny. The sensors showed small shifts in air composition, but nothing dramatic. Marcus went back to his regular job during the day, fixing broken equipment around the station, but every few hours, he would check the readings from Storage Bay 12 on his portable monitor. The changes were slow but steady. Dr. Carter spent the day in her lab, pretending to pack up her research while actually monitoring the experiment. She had hidden cameras in the storage bay so they could watch what was happening. By evening, something amazing was starting to happen. The organisms had begun to work together in ways that Dr. Carter had only seen in her smallest test containers. They were creating a thin layer of organic material on the floor that looked almost like soil. "It's working," Dr. Carter whispered when Marcus visited her lab that night. "Look at this." On her computer screen, Marcus could see the storage bay transforming. What had been cold metal walls now had a thin green coating. The air was becoming cleaner and more breathable. "How long before we see real results?" Marcus asked. "If everything goes well, by tomorrow night we should have a small ecosystem," Dr. Carter said. "But Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." Marcus could hear worry in her voice. "What's wrong?" "I've been monitoring the organisms more closely than I told you," Dr. Carter said. "They're working faster than I expected. Much faster." Marcus felt a chill. "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet," Dr. Carter said. "In my small tests, when they work too fast, they sometimes become unstable. They might produce too much oxygen, or they might start consuming materials we don't want them to consume." Marcus looked at the readings on his monitor. The oxygen levels in the storage bay were rising quickly. "Should we stop the experiment?" Dr. Carter was quiet for a moment. "Not yet. Let's see what happens overnight. But we need to be ready to shut everything down quickly if necessary." The second night, they took turns watching the monitors. Marcus stayed in the lab while Dr. Carter tried to get some sleep. But neither of them slept much. Around 3 in the morning, Marcus noticed something strange. The organisms were glowing. The storage bay, which had been dark except for a few emergency lights, was now filled with a soft green light. Marcus woke. "Dr. Carter, you need to see this." They both stared at the monitor in amazement. The storage bay looked like a magical forest. The walls were covered with glowing plants that had grown from nothing in just 2 days. The floor was covered with what looked like grass and small flowers. "This is incredible," Dr. Carter said. "They've created a complete ecosystem in less than 48 hours. But Marcus was watching the sensor readings with concern. The oxygen levels are getting too high. And look at this temperature reading. Dr. Carter checked the numbers. The storage bay was getting warmer as the organisms worked. The temperature had risen 10 degrees in the past hour. "We might need to slow them down," Dr. Carter said. Before Marcus could respond, an alarm started beeping. One of his sensors was detecting something wrong with the air system. The organisms were producing gases faster than the ventilation system could handle. "We have a problem," Marcus said. "The air pressure in the storage bay is building up. If it gets too high, it could damage the walls." Dr. Carter was already moving toward her emergency controls. "I can release chemicals that will make the organisms slow down." But as she reached for the controls, the lights in the lab went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, but Marcus realized what had happened. "They've affected the power systems," Marcus said. "The organisms are interacting with the station's electrical systems." Dr. Carter looked panicked. "That's not supposed to happen. I designed them to only affect atmospheric gases and organic materials." Marcus was checking his readings frantically. "The electrical interference is spreading. It's affecting systems outside the storage bay." As if to confirm his fears, Marcus's communication device started beeping with emergency messages. Other parts of the station were reporting electrical problems. The organisms had somehow found a way to affect systems throughout the research section. "We have to shut it down now," Marcus said. Dr. Carter nodded and activated the emergency protocols. She released chemicals into the storage bay that would stop the organisms from reproducing. Marcus shut down the air circulation system to prevent them from spreading further, but it was too late. Within minutes, security officers were banging on the lab door. Dr. Carter opened this door immediately. Marcus and Dr. Carter looked at each other. They both knew they were in serious trouble. The security officers entered with weapons drawn. Behind them came the station director, looking angrier than Marcus had ever seen anyone look. "What have you done?" the director demanded. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "We were conducting a controlled experiment to demonstrate the potential of my research." "Controlled?" the director shouted. "You've caused power failures throughout the research section. The emergency systems are barely keeping the air circulation working." Marcus spoke up. "Sir, we can fix the problems. We know how to stop the organisms and repair any damage they've caused." The director turned to look at Marcus. You're supposed to be a maintenance worker. What are you doing involved in unauthorized scientific experiments?" Before Marcus could answer, one of the security officers spoke. "Sir, you need to see this." He was holding a tablet showing video from inside Storage Bay 12. Despite the emergency shutdown, the storage bay still looked like an alien paradise. The glowing plants were beautiful, and the air was clean and fresh. The director stared at the video. "What is this place?" "It was an empty storage room 2 days ago," Dr. Carter said quietly. "My organisms transformed it into a living ecosystem in less than 48 hours. The director looked confused. "You're telling me that you created all of this in 2 days?" "Yes," Dr. Carter said. "And if we had more time and better conditions, we could do the same thing to entire planets." Marcus could see that the director was beginning to understand what he was looking at. This wasn't just a research project. This was technology that could change the future of human space exploration. But the moment of wonder didn't last long. The director's face hardened again. "You've endangered this entire station with your reckless experiment," he said. "You're both under arrest." Marcus and Dr. Carter sat in the station's detention center for 6 hours before anyone came to talk to them. The room was small and cold, with 2 metal chairs and nothing else. Marcus had never been arrested before, and he felt scared and angry at the same time. When the door finally opened, It wasn't a security officer who entered. It was the station director, looking tired and confused. He sat down across from them and rubbed his forehead. "The electrical problems have been fixed," he said. "Your organisms stopped affecting our systems when you shut down the experiment." "Good," Dr. Carter said. "I was worried that the effects might be permanent." The director looked at her strangely. "You're worried about our electrical systems?" "Dr. Carter, you could face criminal charges for endangering the station. You both could." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had known this was a risk, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. "However," the director continued, "I've been talking to the company executives, and they're interested in what you accomplished." "Doctor?" Carter straightened in her chair. "What do you mean?" "I mean that Storage Bay 12 looks like something from a science fiction movie," the director said. "My engineers tell me that you created a completely self-sustaining environment in less than 3 days. They want to know how you did it." Marcus and Dr. Carter exchanged glances. This wasn't what they had expected. "But there's a problem," the director said. "The company doesn't want this technology used for terraforming planets. They have other ideas." "What kind of other ideas?" Dr. Carter asked, though Marcus could tell from her voice that she already suspected the answer. "Military applications," the director said. "They think your organisms could be weaponized. Imagine being able to destroy an enemy planet's atmosphere, or make their equipment fail by releasing organisms that eat metal and plastic." Dr. Carter's face went pale. "That's not what this research is for. These organisms are meant to help humanity, not hurt people." The director shrugged. "That's not my decision to make. The company wants you to continue your research, but under military supervision. They're offering you unlimited funding and resources." "And if I refuse?" Dr. Carter asked. "Then you'll be charged with endangering the station and reckless endangerment of human life," the director said. "You could spend years in prison." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. This is wrong. Dr. Carter's research could help millions of people find new homes. You can't turn it into a weapon. The director looked at Marcus with surprise. "You're just a maintenance worker. This doesn't concern you." "Yes, it does," Marcus said firmly. "I helped create what's in Storage Bay 12. I understand how the organisms work just as well as Dr. Carter does. You can't use this technology without both of us." Dr. Carter looked at Marcus with admiration. "Marcus is right. He's become an expert on these organisms. The company can't continue this research without him." The director seemed frustrated. "Fine. The same offer applies to you, Mr. Williams. Work for the military division or face criminal charges." Marcus and Dr. Carter were given 24 hours to make their decision. They were returned to the detention center, but this time they were allowed to talk to each other privately. "We can't let them turn your research into a weapon," Marcus said. "I know," Dr. Carter replied. "But I don't see any way out of this. If we refuse, we'll go to prison, and they'll find other scientists to continue the work." Marcus paced around the small room, thinking hard. There has to be another option. What if we could get the research to people who would use it properly? "Like who?" "I don't know yet," Marcus said. "But there must be scientists somewhere who care more about helping humanity than making weapons." Dr. Carter was quiet for a moment. "There are. I know people who work for independent research organizations, scientists who aren't controlled by big companies or governments. Could we get the research to them?" "Maybe," Dr. Carter said slowly. "But we would need to escape from the station first, and we would need to take the organisms and data with us." Marcus sat down next to her. "Tell me about these independent scientists." Dr. Carter's eyes lit up with hope for the first time since their arrest. "There's a group called the Colonial Science Alliance. They work on frontier worlds, far from corporate control. They develop technology to help colonists survive on difficult planets." "Are they legal?" "Completely legal," Dr. Carter said. "But they don't accept funding from big companies, so they're always short of money and resources. They would love to have terraforming technology, but they would never use it as a weapon." Marcus was getting excited. "Could we contact them?" "If we could get to a communication terminal without being monitored," Dr. Carter said. But Marcus, even if they wanted to help us, we would need to get off this station. The company owns everything here. Marcus smiled. Getting off the station might be easier than you think. I know this place better than anyone. I know where the escape pods are, and I know how to avoid the security systems. But what about the organisms? We can't leave them here for the company to weaponize. Marcus had been thinking about this problem. We could take samples with us, small containers that wouldn't be detected by security scanners, and we could destroy the rest so the company can't use them. Dr. Carter looked worried. Destroying years of research is painful, but you're right. It's better than letting them turn it into a weapon. They spent the rest of the night planning their escape. Dr. Carter would contact her friends in the Colonial Science Alliance using a maintenance terminal that Marcus could access. Marcus would prepare the escape route and gather the equipment they would need. There's one more thing, Dr. Carter said. The organisms in Storage Bay 12 are still alive. If we leave them there, the company will study them and learn how to recreate our work. Marcus nodded. We'll have to destroy the storage bay too. I can make it look like an accident, a malfunction in the air system that released cleaning chemicals. That will kill all the beautiful life we created, Dr. Carter said sadly. I know, Marcus said. But those organisms will live again on planets where they can help people instead of hurting them. The next morning, a security officer came to get their decision. Dr. Carter and Marcus looked at each other and nodded. We need more time to think about it, Dr. Carter said. This is a big decision. The security officer seemed annoyed. You have until tonight. After that, the offer is withdrawn. After he left, Marcus and Dr. Carter put their plan into action. Dr. Carter pretended to be sick and asked to see the station doctor. While she was in the medical bay, she slipped away to contact her friends in the Colonial Science Alliance. Marcus convinced the guards that he needed to check the detention center's air system for safety problems. While he was working, he secretly gathered the equipment they would need for their escape. By evening, everything was ready. Dr. Carter had made contact with the Colonial Science Alliance, and they had agreed to help. A ship would meet them at Matuinais, the edge of the star system, in 3 days. All they had to do now was escape from the most secure space station in the sector without being caught. Marcus woke up at 3 in the morning just as he and Dr. Carter had planned. The detention center was quiet except for the soft humming of the air recyclers. One security guard was on duty and Marcus could see him through the small window. In the door, the guard was reading something on his tablet and looked bored. Marcus used the emergency communication button to call for help. When the guard opened the door, Marcus was lying on the floor, pretending to be unconscious. Help me, Marcus whispered weakly. I think I'm having a heart attack. The guard looked worried and called for medical assistance. While he was distracted, Dr. Carter slipped out of the detention center through the door he had left open. She moved quietly down the corridor toward the maintenance section. Marcus continued his act until the medical team arrived. When they examined him, they found nothing wrong. Marcus apologized and said he must have been having a panic attack from the stress of being arrested. The medical team left, but now there were 2 guards watching the detention center instead of 1. This was part of their plan. While the guards were focused on Marcus, Dr. Carter had 30 minutes to complete her part of the escape. Dr. Carter made her way to Storage Bay 12 using the maintenance corridors that Marcus had taught her about. The storage bay was still beautiful, filled with glowing plants and clean air, but she knew they had to destroy it to prevent the company from learning their secrets. She opened the containers of cleaning chemicals that Marcus had hidden earlier. These chemicals would kill the organisms quickly and make it look like an accident. Dr. Carter felt sad as she released the chemicals into the air system. In minutes, all the beautiful life they had created would be dead. But she also carried small containers with samples of the healthiest organisms. These would survive to help create new worlds someday. While the chemicals did their work, Dr. Carter went to her laboratory. She downloaded all her research data onto storage devices that Marcus could hide in his tool bag. Then she activated a program that would delete all the information from the station's computers. 25 minutes after leaving the detention center, Dr. Carter was back. The guards never knew she had been gone. The next morning, the station was in chaos. Someone had discovered the destruction in Storage Bay 12, and alarms were ringing throughout the research section. The beautiful ecosystem was dead, and the air smelled like cleaning chemicals. The station director came to the detention center looking angry and confused. "What happened to Storage Bay 12?" he demanded. Dr. Carter looked surprised. "I don't know. We've been locked up here all night." "The whole experiment is ruined," the director said. "All the organisms are dead, and there's no way to recreate the environment." Marcus tried to look disappointed. "That's terrible. All that beautiful work, destroyed." The director studied their faces, trying to see if they were lying, but Marcus and Dr. Carter had practiced looking innocent. "The company is very upset," the director said. "They think someone sabotaged the storage bay deliberately." "Who would do such a thing?" Dr. Carter asked. The director didn't answer. He left them alone, but Marcus could see that he was suspicious. That afternoon, they were told they would be transferred to a corporate prison ship the next day. The company had decided to charge them with criminal destruction of property, even though they couldn't prove Marcus and Dr. Carter had destroyed the storage bay. This was exactly what Marcus and Dr. Carter had expected. The transfer would give them their chance to escape. The prison ship would pick them up from Docking Bay 7 the next morning. But Marcus knew that Docking Bay 6 was right next to it, and there was always a maintenance shuttle parked there. If they could get to that shuttle, they could escape while everyone was distracted by the prisoner transfer. The next morning, Marcus and Dr. Carter were escorted to Docking Bay 7 by 4 security guards. They were wearing restraints on their hands, but Marcus had loosened his during the night using techniques he had learned as a maintenance worker. As they walked through the station, Marcus noticed that most of the security personnel were focused on the prisoner transfer. The corridors near the other docking bays were almost empty. When they reached Docking Bay 7, Marcus saw the prison ship waiting for them. It was an ugly, gray vessel that looked more like a cargo hauler than a passenger ship. Marcus did not want to spend years of his life inside that ship. As the guards prepared to transfer them to the prison ship, Marcus made his move. He slipped out of his restraints and grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. The foam from the extinguisher filled the docking bay with thick white clouds. In the confusion, Dr. Carter broke free from her guards. Marcus grabbed her hand and they ran toward the emergency exit that led to Docking Bay 6. The guards shouted and tried to follow them, but the foam made it impossible to see. By the time the air cleared, Marcus and Dr. Carter were gone. They reached the maintenance shuttle. Just as the alarm system started screaming throughout the station, Marcus had access codes for the shuttle and he started the engines while Dr. Carter sealed the airlock. "Do you know how to fly this thing?" Dr. Carter asked as they lifted off from the docking bay. "I've done maintenance on it hundreds of times," Marcus said. "How hard can it be?" The answer was, "Very hard." The shuttle wobbled and spun as Marcus tried to control it. But gradually he got the hang of the controls, and they began flying away from Kepler 7 station. Behind them, security ships were launching, in pursuit. But the maintenance shuttle was small and fast, and Marcus knew how to use the asteroid field around the station to hide from their sensors. 3 days later, they met the Colonial Science Alliance ship at the edge of the star system. It was a research vessel called the New Horizon, and its crew welcomed them with excitement. Dr. Carter shared her research with the Alliance scientists, and they were amazed by what she had accomplished. Within weeks, they had begun their own terraforming experiments on a small moon near their base. Marcus became the Alliance's chief terraforming engineer. He designed the systems that would control the organisms safely and efficiently. His practical knowledge, combined with Dr. Carter's scientific expertise, made their team incredibly effective. 5 years later, Marcus stood on the surface of a planet called Haven. It had been a dead rock when they started their work, but now it had blue skies, green forests, and clear rivers. Thousands of colonists were building new lives there, free from corporate control. Dr. Carter, now 72 but more energetic than ever, was leading the next terraforming mission to a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy. She had trained dozens of young scientists to continue her work. You know, she said to Marcus as they watched children playing in the forests they had created. I never did fix the plumbing in my old laboratory. Marcus laughed. I'm glad you didn't. If you had, I might never have learned that there's more to life than just fixing broken things. Sometimes, Dr. Carter said, the most important repairs are the ones that fix the future. Marcus nodded, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that had never existed on this world before they came. He had started as a simple maintenance worker, but now he was helping humanity spread life throughout the galaxy. And it all began with a leaky pipe.